Make sure. Hey guys, we're trying to get things set up. We're going to fix the camera a little bit. Hopefully that's it. We've got a gang here and we're going to get started right away and see how much we can get accomplished on refinishing this vanity. We're going to paint the sink and do the front of the cabinet. We're not going to worry about the sides because this is going into a drop-in cabinet, so the sides aren't going to be seen. So what we're going to get started with is a product called New Surface. Now, plaster paint will go on any surface and it will stick to any surface. I've used it on glass, metal. I did my own kitchen sink. I've done tile. You know, everything with it. But for something that's going to get a lot of use, like a bathroom vanity, for instance, we have a product called New Surface. It also helps if you've got something that's kind of, you know, not really smooth to begin with. It kind of helps smooth it out. So we're going to go over the whole thing first with New Surface. It's better when you're doing something like glass or ceramic or this like Corian or whatever it is, these hard cold surfaces. It's good to get them warmed up as much as you can. So I've got the heater sitting here beside it, and definitely on these cold surfaces is another thing that it's good to use the New Surface on, because it's just harder for paint to stick to a cold slick surface than if you were doing this on, say, wood. Now, I'm using just the little chip brushes with the natural bristle. When you use a natural bristle brush with this, you're going to see some brush strokes. If it's important to you to get it on really silky smooth and not have the brush strokes, then there's a brand of brushes called Restore, and we sell those with plaster paint that are synthetic bristle, and they put it on real smooth. Some people apply their plaster paint and particularly their finishes with a rag or a sock or something just to get it on really smooth. I personally don't have an issue with having some brush strokes. I kind of like for it to look like I painted it because, you know, I work hard on this stuff. But this, I guess at some point in our video it is going to be just a little bit like watching paint dry. But I'll work as quickly as I can so y'all can get the idea. And if anybody has any questions, go ahead and jump right in. Now, part of the fun here of the brand new brush that I got and the natural bristles is I'm losing bristles. So I'm trying to make sure I get those worked out.
Got a few little drippies on the front edge there.
Yeah. I'll get there.
And the backsplash too.
Yeah. Thank you. And this is well, it's a different consistency than the paint, which, you know, of course it is. Why would you use it if it weren't? It's kind of, it's a little thinner and it's almost maybe gritty feeling because it just kind of roughs the surface up a little bit where it holds the paint better. I'm going to change paintbrushes.
So is that kind of like the primer and then you put the paint
It
on?
is kind of like a primer.
Okay.
I'm going to use my favorite brush. It's a little smaller, but I use this brush for everything. I don't know what I'm going to do when it actually wears out because I use it for absolutely everything I do. And Dahlia likes it. My little granddaughter that's 4 likes my sparkly handle brush. Okay, yeah, I got a lot of bristles in that. I think I'm not going to use that particular brand of chip brush anymore. Anyway, so now we get going on the front here. Now see, you see it goes on, I don't know if you can really tell by looking, but it goes on the wood entirely different than it does up here. This is like, you know, it's trying to, it flows really thin. This kind of eats it up. the wood is taking a lot more of it in. But it will help to, one reason I'm doing it here is because we chose our colors in advance, and we're going to do Plaster Paint's original ivory lace on the front and espresso on the sink. And since I'm going with such a light color on the front, normally I wouldn't worry about using new surface, but there's two reasons. One is because of where it's roughed up, where old varnish and stuff has come off. It'll kind of help cover that. And the other one is because we're using such a light color. Normally if I'm doing a cabinet door or something and it's in pretty good shape, we just go right over it with the original or one-step plaster paint.
So do you wipe it down with just some water or something before you start to make sure it's...
Yeah, just make sure it's clean. You don't have to use any special solvents or anything, and no sanding's required. Now, like I said on this, if that were really rough, if there were, I've had one before that little bits of the varnish were still coming off. So yeah, I'll rub over that with a little sandpaper just to get anything that's loose off. But mostly, the benefit of this paint is that you don't have to do a lot of prep work. And you could see I didn't do anything to this other than just clean the dirt off of it. And I'm not being exceptionally careful with my brush strokes or anything either. You try to get it smooth. Of course, I'm working a lot faster than I normally would go, which is why I didn't wear my good clothes today. I figured I was going to be splashing a little paint. Normally I go pretty slow and careful, but I'm trying to make this enjoyable for everyone. And you know, the more paint I splash on myself, the funnier it'll be.
It sticks to anything.
It sticks to anything. It really, really does. A sink or a bathtub that, you know, is going to be getting water, getting a lot of use. After it's all done, we put the final finish on. It'll be dry enough to touch in about 20-30 minutes. But if you're going to use it, you know, like my kitchen sink, I gave it a week to cure before I actually started using it. You know, we set a few things over in it, but I didn't start running water in it for a week because there's a dry time, and I mean, it'll dry, it'll be, you know, you could pick something up or whatever, but in about a week it's really cured, and honestly, you can tell a difference in a month. It just gets hard as nails over time. So, while we're literally watching paint dry, I want to talk a little bit about some fun things. Plaster paint carries the line of its original plaster paint, and it requires a sealant if you're going to use it on something like cabinet, chair, or whatever. If you're doing a little craft project that isn't going to get handled that much, you don't have to seal it. But we carry a line of liquid waxes and paste wax finished products. But the original comes in, I think we're up to 42 colors now, and it is the one that requires a sealer. I want to mention, and I have them on special this month, there are 3 colors in the original, and I know at least one of them's in the one step. They might all 3 be in the one step. These colors, Sweet Pea, Buttercream, and Sunshine, all proceeds, all profits from the sales of these go to charity. This one goes to the CARE Project, which is for breast cancer assistance, and Buttercream and Sunshine both go to St. Jude's. And that's something that the company does, and I think that's awfully cool that every penny they make off of this goes to those charities. This month I'm doing 20% off on all of those because I'm trying to promote sales. And like I said, it's the company that donates, so the more of it I order, the more they give. So I'd rather mark it down, sell a lot of it, and get those proceeds too. Particularly St. Jude's is kind of one that I really care about. Okay, we also have right here the One Step. The One Step has the sealer in it, so you don't have to put a sealer over it. It's self-leveling. It's pretty cool. You paint it on and then resist the temptation to go back and touch things up, because as it dries, it'll kind of look different. But when it really dries, which takes about 20 or 30 minutes, the wax part, the sealer, has come up to the top. So it self-levels. I've seen them use it on tile floors. I've used it on a few things myself. It's a little bit easier. I honestly don't mind putting the finishes on. I really love the liquid wax. So usually I use the original and the liquid wax, but the One Step is a great product. We also have a line of metallics. They're in the original paint. They require sealer, but they're gorgeous colors. Having terrible technical difficulties, so we will try to keep going. I'm starting. I've got the ivory lace paint, and I'm just starting to put it on the cabinet. And the plan for sealing this is we're going to use a brown glaze rather than the clear liquid wax for the sealer, to kind of antique it a little bit and get in these little grooves so they show up. And I think Heather's getting some close-ups here. Remember, the close-ups are of the project and not of the...
Oh, don't worry, you're not in it.
Okay, good. That's all I'm asking.
Just your hand.
My house has been getting a kitchen makeover, and their house is going to get a bathroom makeover, and then probably a kitchen makeover, because, you know, since we discovered plaster paint, we're having a lot of fun. I did another product that we carry that I don't have with today. A lot of the stuff is in the High on the Hog store in Prairie Grove, but we, Plaster Paint just a couple of months ago came out with a line of stains that are for raw wood, and my countertop was unsealed pine, and I was ready to do something different with it, and I did it in turquoise stain with the liquid wax over it. And boy, does it take a beating, because that's where we prepare food, eat meals, I do my projects. I mean, it gets hammered, and I just love it. It's doing just fine.
Do you have any pictures posted of it?
I do. I have some pictures on the Rowanwood Facebook page, and I think even on rowanwoodart.com. If I don't have pictures up there, I will. I think I got them posted on there. It is hard to keep up with all the places that you gotta update, but I try. And then I made a flip book recently and put in the store in Prairie Grove, because people were coming in and, you know, wanting to know more about what you could do. So I did a little book to go in there, and I should probably just post those same images in an album on Facebook so everybody can see it. So when I watch this video later to see how dorky I sound, I'll remind myself to post those pictures so everyone can see them. But I know I got the sink on there because I was darn proud of that sink. My sink is about probably 90 years old, and has the old porcelain over cast iron. Yeah. And I loved it. It has the drain boards. I wouldn't give it up for anything. But the finish was so worn off of it that you could not keep it clean. I could bleach it, and then the next time we ran water, it was looking dreadful again. And so the first reaction I got was, "Oh no, what did you do to that antique sink?" And I made it where I could use it, because it was, I mean,
What color did you do?
I did the espresso that we're going to use here. I used it as the base, and then I used peacock, pearl, and spun gold as the accents, and did the faux granite. And then the cheap, ugly faucet that was on that sink, it was just, you know, basic silver faucet, and I did it with the peacock metallic, and it looks pretty good too. And then my bathroom, I have a hand-painted ceramic sink in the bathroom that I really love, but the faucet in there was, our water has a high sulfur content, so it kind of eats up the metal, and so it was pretty discolored, didn't look very nice. And I did it the other day. I used the espresso base coat on it, and then went over it with spun gold, and it kind of came out with kind of a bronzy look, and man, did that make that look better. And I love just having the paint around, because I'll just get an idea to go do something like that. And I actually did that on Christmas Eve, and then when everyone gathered, I was like, okay, go look at the faucet. I was really proud.
Just use it, just look at it.
No, you could use the faucet. The sink we had to wait, the faucet not so bad. Once it had the liquid wax on it and it was dry, I was pretty good with it. But yeah, that was just, you know, getting ready for people to come over on Christmas Eve. I was like, boy, I hate that faucet. Why don't I fix that? And I did. So I'm using espresso countertop base coat. The one that was in here was Java, which is it's one of the metallics. Yeah, that's the one that's in the kit. It's just got, it's basically the same, it's just got a little metallic. This is just a plain. And it's one of the original colors, but it's in the countertop base coat. That's what's in the big can too, is the metallic, but it's in a countertop base coat. What that is it's the original paint, and they add another ingredient to it to make it just a little more sticky, so it will stick to that surface. So yeah, you can use the original, but for something, we could have done this all in just original. But if you want it to be more durable and it's something that you're going to use a lot, there are a lot of different tricks for getting it there, and to do the new surface and then use the base coat. It's going to be bulletproof. It really is.
In the bathroom, you can have the moisture.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So you need, and giving it that cure time before you start using it, oh, so important. But at the Plaster Paint Studio in Catoosa, they have a little vanity like this sitting out, and they have one side of it painted. And people come in and scratch trying to prove that it won't stick to the sink. And let me tell you, it does. I was there, I saw it. When I first, let me tell you the saga of how I found plaster paint. We did a vintage fair at Horton Farms last May, and I saw paint, you know, a booth that had paint in it, and I was like, well, you know, big deal, paint. You can buy paint anywhere? Yeah, I said that. And I walked right by. I didn't talk to him or anything. Well, then in August, we trekked all the way to Albuquerque, dragging my sister along, and did a vintage show out there, and they had a huge, Plaster Paint had a huge display. And I was like, oh, those people with the paint. And they had a bathtub, and it was an old clawfoot tub, and had a big feather on the side. It was just gorgeous. And I went, tell me about this paint that you know, sticks to a bathtub. And I was like, that's just for pretty, right? And they were like, no, we do bathroom remodels all the time. So they sent me home with a handful of samples, and I painted everything that I could find to paint, testing it out. And then I called them and said, tell me more about this, can I sell it? And they were like, well, sure. So I went over, and that's when we went over to Catoosa and we did the sample board and everything, and I was hooked. And I have never cared about what kind of paint I use. I don't even, when I do paintings, I don't care. I'll use wall paint if it's the color that I want. I'm not picky about what kind of paint I use. Now I use plaster paint. I mean, this stuff has got me hooked. I think it would be safe to get started on this. There are a couple of spots where I put it on a little heavy that it's not wanting to dry, but I think I can get started on the front there. And of course I should be stirring as well as shaking these paints, but I did kind of do a little stirring beforehand to make sure that they were stirred up. So this is just a lovely, rich color. And it's going to go, I'm going to tell you right now, it is going to, the first coat is not going to look beautiful because it's so dark going over this light color that it's going to have some streaks and it's not going to be gorgeous. We'll put another coat on. It'll be fine. This is the same way that I did my sink. And I did the new surface first. And I put the new surface on and went, oh gosh, that looks so pretty now. Maybe I should just paint it white. And then I put this on and it was all streaky and I went, oh no. Did I ruin it? But the next coat will get it just fine. And it, again, white surface and this cold, shiny surface. It doesn't, it's not quite as easy to get it to lay on as if we were doing it on a softer, more porous surface. Another thing is if I happen to hit a spot here where the new surface is not quite dry and it mixes in with this a little bit, we're going over it with another coat, so it's really not going to hurt anything. I mean, I wouldn't say put it on while it's wet, but if you get a little bit where it's not quite dry, it's not a big deal because it's just going to mix in with it and dry. And we're going to put another coat or maybe two over it. Another thing is they recommend that you just dip, before you start, dip your brush in a little water and then dry it off like that where it's just a little damp. It just kind of helps smooth out when you're putting the paint on.
Is the paint thick?
Yes.
Yeah, it's white.
Yeah. I love the texture of this. That was my friend that started using it after I got her hooked on it. That was one of the first things she said is she liked the feel of how it goes on because it's so creamy.
Doesn't have an odor, does it?
No.
I mean, like you can use it in
There's
the house.
The only thing that has the slightest little odor is the paste wax. Has, I don't know,
wax.
kind of like turtle wax. Yeah, it just has a little bit of a smell, but it's not overpowering. Before I knew about plaster paint, I had to redo a bunch of tables for a restaurant last year about this time, and couldn't do them outside because it was too cold. So I was doing it in my house, and we had taken all these table tops off and just brought the tops home. So I'm laying these all over the place and putting a really thick oil-based polyurethane, you know, it wasn't a water-based paint, it was a oil-based polyurethane. Had to use mineral spirits to clean it up and all that. I thought I was going to die. I had my house, I had the fire going, was heating my house like crazy, and all the doors and windows open so I could breathe. It was awful. And so when I found this paste wax that you basically does the same job, or the liquid wax, I mean, that you just paint on, has no smell whatsoever, I was like, oh, that would have saved me a lot of trouble because that was pretty awful. Okay. Yeah, still a little wet. So let's talk about something else. Questions? Somebody wanted to do countertop. You were talking about what?
Your countertops.
She was gonna do cabinets.
I was gonna get cabinets. Do you have to sand or anything before, or you just wash it and paint it?
Just wash it and paint it. Like I said, you've got like an old varnish that's really flaking off or something like that, I would make sure you get rid of that. You know, you might have to sand it lightly or something.
Build up around the stove area.
Yeah, you want to clean off any oils. It's a water-based paint and it's not going to like oil. And if you've got something that's really discolored, you might go over it with a new surface first. Normally on a cabinet door or something, you know, wood, no, I would just go straight on with the original. But if you've got a lot of buildup or a discoloration or something, then yeah, you might want to.
Would you use the one step or the original?
Personally, I mean, that's really, people do both. I would use the original. And then most people for cabinet doors do the original and then they do the paste wax and buff it. Which if you get the little buffer brush for the drill, it's really easy because it'll get in those little crevices and whatever. It's not that big a deal to do. The main reason I asked, I was like, why wouldn't you just use the liquid wax? I love the liquid wax. And they said, well, usually it's because if you're doing the vertical surface, people get drips. Don't get drips. I just, you know, wipe up the drips.
Okay,
So I would still prefer to use the liquid
We
wax.
have a question.
We have a question from out there in TV land.
What about putting plaster paint over cheap veneer covered doors?
Yeah, go for it. To answer that question, I'll go with what I think is going to be the next one here on the countertops. What kind of countertop were you talking about?
It's Formica.
Formica. Good. What I was hoping you'd say. Yeah, you can go right over Formica. And again, whether or not you use a new surface under it would depend on factors like if there's discoloration, what you're going to be using it for. But under normal use, just the countertop base coat, like the espresso that we're using. And so I would say on veneer on the doors, if it's a thin wood veneer, I just use the original and use either paste wax or liquid wax. If it's that plasticky, like almost contact paper kind of veneer, if it's that plasticky feeling, then I would go for the countertop base coat because I think it's going to grip a little bit better on that surface. And then again, cover it with your choice of the paste wax or the liquid wax. And I hope that was helpful.
On the cabinets, would you take the doors off or just leave them on?
Dealer's choice. A lot of people will take them off depending on what they're going to do with the hardware.
Yeah.
Because you can just go right over and paint the handles. A lot of people like to, you know, if you're going to do like an ivory lace on the cabinet doors and then you want to do a bronze or spun gold or something on the hardware, you might want to take those off and do them separately. It'd be easier than trying to paint around. And so on the hinges. So, you know, if you're going to take
It's gonna be off anyway.
yeah, right. Now, I will say this, and fortunately someone else learned this hard lesson so they could pass it on to me. If you're going to take the cabinet doors off and you're going to take the hinges off the cabinet doors, mark which door goes where and which hinges go back on which door. Because you think they're all in the same place. Oh, they're not. And it will drive you crazy trying to figure out where those hinges went back. Because they're going to be, you know, so make sure you mark everything where that specific one goes. I mean, a lot of people, for me, my cabinets don't have any handles. They're just the thread. So I would just paint them where they are. I wouldn't take them down. If you've got a lot of detail or something that you're afraid you're going to get drips, and if you've got them taken down, then I would definitely use the liquid wax. The benefit of using the paste wax is so it won't drip. So if you've got them laid out and you're doing them that way, then I would use the liquid wax.
So you're not a real fan of the one step?
I can't say that. I like the one step.
What have you used it on?
I used it on a small end table, and it's fine. I thought that maybe it wasn't quite as durable, but then I've seen them use it on a ceramic tile floor, and it's working just fine. So I wouldn't want to say that it's not as durable. I don't know. I think I'm just old school, and I think. Well, there are some beautiful colors in the one step. I got to tell you that the sailor blue, I love that color. I did picture framing it, and there's some gorgeous. They were talking the other day about, and I don't have one here. There's a green that's a little. This is the Tuscan olive, but there's a green that's a little creamier than this. That's called Mona Lisa, and they were talking about. Trying to get the company to do it in the original too, because everybody just loves that color. So there's some really gorgeous colors, and then we've got a lot of the crimson because it's razorback red. So, you know, if you got to touch up your razorback stuff, the crimson's just fine. But there are, well, with the addition of the new ones that benefit St. Jude, I think there are 21 colors in the one step now, but there's over 40 in the original, and I just love the variety of the colors. And you can mix easily, you know, if there's a slightly different that you want to do, it mixes very easily.
How much would one of those little ones do? Would it do that cabinet? The small one still?
Yeah.
One coat, or would it do two?
To do that, I for safety, I'd go with the 2 ounce. I don't know that I would do the 1 ounce one. You know, that's probably more for like a small project. I'm trying to think of something I've done, but you know, a tchotchke. You know, your little
Doodad.
doodad. That's it. Doodad is the word I was looking for. Thank you.
Yeah.
But again, those are really basically samples. Okay, well, I am completely happy with how the front is working out, so I'm just going to go ahead and put the second coat of ivory lace on our wood here, and I think you'll see a real difference when we get this coat on.
Yeah, already looks
richer. It's just going to go on so smooth, and like you said, I think richer. You're just supplying all the you got the words. You're good with those word things. My mouth words no work good. My head words work good. Mouth words no work good.
Too many fumes. Should have found this paint years ago.
You know what I haven't been jabbering about while we were watching paint dry is all the upcoming classes that we do have. And I will cover that in a minute after I've covered this. See? My words work.
Puns work.
Oh yeah, the puns are in. Let no pun go unpunished. The thing is I don't know, maybe I'm not making it look all that easy, but to do something like this in an afternoon, it doesn't cost very much. I'm gonna have him as $20. Yeah. No, okay, I lied. It might be more like 30. But, you know, go price a new vanity. And it just makes such a difference to your home to have these nice little touches. And it's just not that hard.
You won't.
It's kind of cool to say, oh, I did this.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I painted that sink.
And you can even tell just by looking at it
Yeah.
how it's
And-
dry.
Yes, it is a little spot there that's not.
Yeah.
This, even while it's all smeary, doesn't look nice, it feels like silk. If you want to touch it, anyone want to touch it?
It's pretty
Touch
dry.
it. So touch it right there. Touch it right here. Isn't that nice?
Touch it.
But it's not all about how it feels. I kind of agree. It's going to need to look better than that. Does anyone know what I did with my
I don't know,
towel
it
this
looks
time?
pretty cool
It
right
ran
now.
away. So, just pardon.
Will the fan dry it too fast while you're
I,
scrubbing?
I don't think so. We'll see.
It's a good question.
It is a good question. I didn't slap her or nothing. It does. The stuff does dry fast.
Whenever I was painting with the one step, I usually have a fan on, and it was drying a little too fast.
Yeah. When you're trying to work, especially if you're going to work with a couple of colors or something, and yeah, it can dry fast. And let me tell you now, when I'm using my pet brush, I make sure that's one reason I clean it a lot, is because when you start getting paint up here and it'll start drying on even while you're still working, that's really hard to get out. If the phone rings, throw your brush in some water, because if you come back to it in 10 minutes, your brush is going to be ruined.
Especially if you're painting on wax.
Yeah. If you come back to a hardened
It's ruined.
You may have noticed I was waiting till last on the bowl, because that's what was giving me fits before. Okay, Heather, I'm thinking, I know that's not real pretty, but I'm thinking let that dry a bit and try again in a minute. Oh. What I got here is a brown glaze, and this is a product that you can get direct from plaster paint. And you can also make your own glazes, which we'll do a class on that, playing with different kinds of glazes and doing fun stuff. We've done one before when we did our little pumpkins back in October.
Have you chalk
Oh,
painted before? Do you
yeah.
have I mean, like, what's the difference kind of between plaster paint and chalk paint, or do you know?
Chalk paint has one ingredient, it's paint with chalk in it. Plaster paint has a blend of ingredients. It's what makes it more durable. It's what gives it its finish. And I'm trying to not be rude. I don't personally care for chalk paint. I've seen a lot of pieces done in it. I don't like the overall look.
You haven't seen the one I did, though. Well, yes, you have.
Which one is it?
She's just now telling you,
Upstairs
right?
in the guest room.
The
blue
dresser?
and white. Yeah.
It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. And what did you finish it with? Did you get the wax
Wax.
on it?
Yeah.
It is nice. There's, I don't know, you see a lot at the vintage fairs and stuff, and they tend to, I don't know, there's just a look. They tend to just look alike. Actually, the one you did doesn't. It looks shinier. Doesn't have the dull finish.
Yeah.
Wax.
There was another question. How long will this last with normal use?
This particular thing,
Yeah.
Sleep.
years. Depends on what you mean by normal use. If you normally run a drill across the back and forth across it, then no, it won't last forever, but brushing your teeth, yeah, it'll handle it. It's best to use like a foam cleaner or something and not use an abrasive. Always remember that no matter how durable this is, how great it is still paint. You know, your paint on the outside of your house lasts 10 years, but it wouldn't last very long if you start, you know, when you start scraping it off, it comes off pretty easily. It'll last a long time with water running over it, with cleaning it, wiping it off. Like my kitchen sink, I don't have a dishwasher, so I use my kitchen sink, and it's doing just fine.
Well, when you think $30, you said $30 in it maybe?
Yeah.
So give you a change until you could do something else if you chose to.
I think that we've had that discussion before with some of the other retailers about how long it lasts. It usually lasts longer than you want it to. Usually people are ready to change to a different color before it's worn off or anything, you know. I'm going to do something a little different with the glaze. And I'm just going to get a little bit of it out because I don't think we're going to use a tremendous amount doing that. I'm just going to get a little bit of it out, and I'm going to use a tiny little brush so I can get down in those crevices. And remember, if we don't like it, I'll wipe it off. What do you think, Heather? Is that a look you're going to like?
Yes, I think so.
If no, tell me now and we'll go back to just using
I
them.
told you, just do whatever you want. Another question is, so silverware and pots and pans don't scratch it.
Not normally. You just putting stuff in there to wash and whatever. I haven't had any problem. If you had a steak knife in and, you know, scraped it across the bottom, yeah, you'd probably get a scratch.
Or a cast iron skillet.
Yeah, I gotta be honest, I haven't had a cast iron skillet in
I
my.
was going to say you're not supposed to wash the cast iron.
And I have always, no matter what sink you have, because sinks scratch up, I use dishpan. You know, if I'm actually doing dishes in the sink, I use a dishpan because even well, that's how my antique sink got scratched up in the first place.
Yeah, my sink's just your typical, what are they, porcelain,
Yeah.
and it's got chips.
Yeah. So it's such a hard question to answer because what do you mean by normal use? And if, how hard are you on your sink?
You gotta film over your shoulder.
Okay. Now, I'm using a really, really floppy, soft bristled brush because I kind of wanted this to be a little,
Antique.
yeah, not real defined, just kind of, I'm trying to not say sloppy, and I'm not having my mouth words aren't.
I would
coming out.
help, but I can't think of a word either.
Yeah. But,
Rustic.
do you see what we're going for there?
How about rustic?
We'll use rustic.
How about loose? Loose is a
Loose.
good substitute for sloppy, I think.
Loose, that works. Just a little bit looser, not so defined.
Yep, that's a good one.
Well, it's easier.
Loose and easy, that's what we're going for.
Well, a lot of people do these techniques. That's
It's
pretty.
been 20 minutes, you can start blazing now.
A lot of people do these techniques with a rag or a sponge or different, and I'm pretty comfortable using a brush. A lot of things that they'll say, that you have to layer this on using a sponge or whatever, I'll sneak my brush into it somewhere because I'm just really comfortable with what I can do with a brush. Okay, I want to vote. Do we like it or do we want to go back to the plain white? And Heather, your vote carries more weight than anybody else's.
No, I'm liking it.
I kind of know Heather's style.
I would not want plain white.
I kind of felt like that with her household with 3 children using a bathroom, and kind of felt like she might prefer something that was a little more, I think we settled on rustic.
Yes.
Okay, when you get it where you just love it, and you're like, Yeah, that's good. And then you put the wax on and go, oh my God, I love it so much more. Cause it makes it pop.
You can paint over the wax?
Yeah. You could even, if you don't have new surface and you're, there are some projects where you can go ahead and put the wax on to kind of help the paint stick, like on glass or something. I've painted glass bottles with the original paint, and it's fine if you're doing it for something that's going to sit on a shelf, a decoration. If you wanted it to be a little bit more durable, you can put the wax under and then over. I really want to get it in around the drain. We've got a drain going in that will sit over that and cover some of that, but I just want to make sure there's no gaps in there. And we've got a pretty faucet to go on this that's going to look gorgeous with our...
Just gotta match it.
No, it's just, she happened to have a really lovely bronze faucet. So, okay, if I wanted this to stay this espresso brown and we weren't going to do any other accent, I'd let this coat dry. And I'd do one more and it would be smooth and lovely, and I think you could tell that by the way that it's going on. I think that glaze might have thickened a little bit. I'm just going to add a little bit of liquid wax to it. Thin it out where it's not going on so dark, because my experience before with glazes has been, this is going on just almost like a paint, and I'm wanting to see through it. So I think it might have thickened up a little bit. So now we'll just test this up here where it's going to show the most. Okay, it's going on a little smoother. And
Yeah, that looks better. Not as patchy.
yeah, see, I wanted it to go on as a glaze and it was going on a little thick. But this was the idea of using a little brush, is so I could get in there in those spots that we may or may not have gotten paint in. Leave that darkness in there.
Dark steel really likes the look of the first door.
Okay, good. Because dark steel, dark steel's opinion is kind of important too.
Then you can spill a cup of coffee and you'll never know it. That's right.
That's the idea. All these coffee spillers in the house.
Yeah, in your bathroom. A lot of coffee drinking goes on in Heather's bathroom.
Well, you know, we do drink a lot of coffee. And Dark Steel says, yay, I'm important.
It's gonna be back window by 6.
Yeah, I'll do the top.
Sponge the top
I'm
a
going
little
to
bit.
sponge the top, and I'll be really super quick. I just want to get, I'm afraid if I don't get this glaze on to match, that it won't. So,
Yeah, at this point, it's not going to take much longer to finish.
yeah, it's pretty much there.
Well, Riley came in late on the feed and asked what the project is.
Well, Riley, it's the bathroom vanity for Harbison House, also known as Heather's house.
We want painted varnished wood
Yep.
and a faux marble sink.
Gosh, you're good. Okay, that may get another touch up or two.
But that's good for now.
It's good for now, and we're on, yeah, I don't like it. I just see something there that needs taken care of. It was just a heavy spot. There
But
we
we can
go.
touch that up.
Yeah, I can fix that on my own time. It's a little bit more rustic than I like, but again, not my bathroom. Okay, so, normally what we
Okay, I'm
do,
just gonna repaint it when she's
when we're
done.
going to do the marble top, is we get a paper plate or something and drizzle a little bit of this paint on and then dip a sponge. I'm going to skip a step, sorry guys, and I'm going to very, as Dolly would say, very carefully.
Well, I think the only reason we used the plates when we were doing it is because there were so many people. We couldn't pass
Well,
the bottle
it's-
around.
It's a good, the thing is, you don't want to pour a blob. You want your lines, okay?
Oh yeah, this is gonna need a
Yeah,
closer view.
yeah. I'm gonna kind of mess that up a little bit too. Gold finger. Don't worry, I'm not gonna leave it like that. Cool. Now, when you do, like I did my kitchen sink, I did gold, I did pearl, I did peacock. I went back and did a little gold, did some more peacock, you know. And after you get the paste wax on, you can see the layers, and it's just, it gives it depth. Now, this is a tricky part, because we want to get, you don't want a gap where it looks like,
Get into
yeah.
the crease.
you've got to get in all of it. And that is sometimes where, like I said, I fake it a little and just get it with a little brush. Because again, I have been told you can't do this with a brush, but I heartily disagree. Now, this, I don't use a good brush. I make sure I've got one of the ratty ones that came with the kids' art kit, and because you want it to make a little bit of a mess. And there, just about, with a little bit of working in here. There's your marble sink. I thank you so much for coming, and I think you get the point here. So we're going to liquid wax, and I'm probably going to do quite a bit more work there because I like where it's going. I will. I like where it's going. I do not like where it is right now. We're headed in the right direction, but that's not finished. But
That same looks
I
awesome.
love this because I've done the granite. I was a little, I'll tell you now, I was a little worried about doing the marble look. But yeah, like I said, she's got a lovely bronzy faucet that has just a little
It
bit
does
of
look cool.
gold accent. Okay, now, again, everybody,
I think you should put some gold on the front too.
on the, I thought about using a gold glaze over, so, like I said, ain't done yet. We'll see where it goes. And, I guess that the right way to do this is say, oh yes, this is all how I planned it. My projects, your projects will make sure that we know everything by the book. My projects,
Wing it.
I wing it. When it looks good, I stop. That's how I do a painting. That's gone. I like it.
I like it.
It's got good depth.
We're gonna throw the wax on top of that. It will shine. I'm gonna keep working on this until we've worked it in where it looks like a distressed instead of like I smeared paint on it. But I will post the finished project. And
You're just, it's Rowan Art on Facebook?
Rowanwood. Rowanwood Art.
We've got
Yeah.
cards.
Yeah, it should have the Facebook. You know what, if you go to rowanwoodart.com, there's a link to click for the Facebook.
Stop.
So, well,
Stop.
that didn't have any on, okay, I'll stop.
Go.
No, it really doesn't come off. I'm gonna let that float in there. Okay, and I think we'll probably stop our live feed for now, and when I get the thing completed, I will post it, like I said,